With everything on the line and the lights at their brightest, the Vikings choked it away. What else is new? Welcome to the Locked On Vikings podcast.
You are Locked On Vikings, your daily Minnesota Vikings podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Locked On Vikings podcast, where we're always trying to learn something new. It's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And thank you so much for making Locked On Vikings your first visit of the day each and every day, especially now that we are in playoff season. So I'm sure there are a lot of people who are new, and hello, welcome. Hope you enjoy the show. So thank you so much for coming and hanging out, no matter who you are. Today's episode is brought to you by LinkedIn. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. Terms and conditions apply. So here's the thing. We don't have to mince words today, okay? We're not going to mince words. The Vikings sucked on Sunday night. They played awful. They got destroyed by a better team, by a contending team, and they kind of looked like a team that's careening toward a first-round exit, right? If they play that way again, it'll be a very easy playoff win for the Rams. Are they going to play that way again? Well, let's not go making any predictions right now, but I think we can all agree that that level of play was not good enough for a team that fancies itself a Super Bowl contender, that had everybody talking about how, Bill Cowher was talking about, oh, they reminded me of my 2005 team and all this it factor stuff. Well, the it factor is supposed to show up when the lights get bright. With everything on the line, first round bye, the division, home field advantage, all of that, the Vikings laid an egg and they no-showed. And it's very it's not very effective cope to be like, yeah, but there was that one really good Cam Akers run, the 58-yard run, put him right to the goal line where they then again failed to score because the red zone went bad. And you can say, oh, what if they hit all those in the red zone? They'd have 3 touchdowns. They had, get this, 11 plays inside the 10. 11 plays inside the 10. And on those, they netted 3 points. Scored 9 on the day, 2 other field goal drives, and a missed field goal. It's pathetic. And even still, just having 3 trips into the red zone, it's a lot of drives that failed. And one of those field goal drives, by the way, was set up by a turnover. Thought the defense played okay. They gave up 31. Second time they've given up 31 to the Lions, and the Lions are the only team that's scored that much on them. The Rams also got 30 on them, although part of that was that stupid safety on the face mask thing. And we could complain about ref calls again. There was another missed face mask in this game, which is it. This is the fourth one of these, by the way. It's not why the Vikings lost, and I'm not at all trying to say that. Okay, you don't deserve ref calls when you no-show like that. You should get every ref call against you. Honestly, don't cry me a river. You sucked. And Justin Jefferson went on the podium and said we didn't get the calls today. I don't know, man, cry me a river. That is weak to me, but I do think that it is worth taking an off-season look at why face mask calls have been so messed up this year. Maybe I'm just super overly noticing it because it's happened to the Vikings 4 different times. The Rams, everybody remembers that one. Colts game right after it. Sam Darnold gets bopped right in the head, nothing. There was one in the Titans game and then this one, and I'm pretty sure I'm forgetting a couple. The Sam Darnold face mask thing is ridiculous. It is to the point where something needs to be done to help refs enforce this. Either give replay assist the ability to do that or something like that, because it is a player safety issue. And I don't really care if that slows down the game. We need to call face masks. I'm sorry. I don't care if you, everybody's so worried about that. A big play getting called back because replay assist found a face mask. But yeah, good. Don't do the face mask. That's the rule. Enforce it. You can feel my frustration. And that does frustrate me, but it's more of an off-season talker to me. It is not the reason they lost this game. A bailout would have been nice, but it's not the reason they lost this game. They lost this game because they sucked donkey dick. I'm sorry. They were horrible. The Vikings couldn't get out of their own way on offense, and in particular, Sam Darnold was really poor. We're going to talk about Sam Darnold's poor game and what to make of it a little later. Especially in does this affect extension talks and let's check in, where's all that? And also, of course, the major impact of this one is that the Vikings now have to play on Wild Card Weekend. They're traveling to LA to play the Rams. But I think if you want the story of this game, it has to come in the red zone. This comes from Optastats. I don't know, Optastats, OPTA stats, who says, so the Vikings went, it's just like a partridge in a pear tree, 4 times reaching the red zone without scoring a touchdown, 3 getting goal to go, no touchdown, 2 failed 4th and goal attempts, and a missed field goal. No team in the last 30 years have done all of that in one game. That's your story of the game, that the Vikings did manage to get to the red zone a couple times, either by turnover or by putting together a sustained drive. But then they flamed out. They went for it on a couple of 4th and goals. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of second guessing about going for those 2 4th downs. Field goals weren't going to win you this game. What, you all want to lose 31-15 instead? No, they had to go for those touchdowns. They had to. I don't care about the warm fuzzies of losing by a little less. But all in all, I think the anxiety to address is, well, what if this is really who they are? I don't know if you can say that. I mean, you can call this game as bad as it is. Again, we don't have to mince words. We don't have to be nice. Okay, you don't deserve to be score double digits. Then we'll be nice. Lose by less than 3 scores. But that doesn't mean you have to extrapolate. And we do that a lot, right? We say, oh my God, well, the Vikings are, never, maybe they shouldn't have won any games at all. Oh my God, maybe they should get, I had people calling to fire coaches in my mentions on Twitter. It's game day. They don't count. I'm not holding it against any of you, but I do think it's probably worth saying, hey, maybe be cautious about that. That's probably not correct. It's probably not a take you're willing to defend. And this regular season, now the Vikings went 14-3. They haven't won as many games since 1998. They didn't win this many games in 2009. They didn't win this many games in 2017. They didn't win this many games any other time in their entire franchise's history outside of 98. So it's still a season that is absolutely worth being proud of, even though it ends on this total whimper. And you don't win 9 games in a row by not being good, And I'm seeing people kind of prematurely take victory laps on one game, especially with Sam Darnold, and we'll get to that. But I do think it's lame. I think there are a lot of people that really want the Vikings to be bad because they thought the Vikings would be bad preseason. And I thought the Vikings would be bad preseason too. But I gave up on that by week 2 because I said I would, right? Y'all remember I said week 2, if they can go beat the 49ers, I'll jump right on that bandwagon. They did, and I did. And I think a lot of people wanted to keep that preseason take going forever and ever and go, yeah, but Sam Darnold. I mean, we know it's Sam, but it's Sam Darnold. But these Vikings aren't. They're supposed to win 6 games. They're a fluke. Yeah, but it's the AFC South. Those teams are bad. Who have they really beaten? What have they really done? This one doesn't count because of that. That time they got lucky. Blah, 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 blah. And dismiss and dismiss and dismiss and dismiss and dismiss. And then they finally do falter like you said they would. And everyone goes, yes, I knew it. That's the real Vikings. Yes. No. That's insane. If you're going to dismiss 14 wins, I get to dismiss this one and say, off night. I absolutely get to do that. I can absolutely say, off night. Whether it's an off night or it is like a portend of doom. Oh, this is the real them. Not the one we saw for the last 9 games. No, this one that I actually agreed with to start with. Yeah, that's the real one. Regardless of who is right, the season now gets to be defined on one game if you lose it. Right? If you go one and done again, then it kind of was a wimpy little stupid. Oh yeah, they made the playoffs that year. But that's all you get to say, that you got a participation trophy, right? So you're open to that. They can't lay that kind of egg again. And how to not lay that kind of egg is kind of what I want to get into next and what happened here. And you have to start on offense. I'll say really quick, I'm not going to talk a ton about the defense today. They did admirably. They held up for about 2.5 quarters, but then the dam kind of broke on them. They give up 3 straight touchdown drives in the second half, and that's getting your ass kicked, right? You played more than half of a good game, and that's decent, but you did play real bad in the second half. So the defense has its coming to Jesus to do as well. And why Ben Johnson continues to own the absolute heck out of Brian Flores. I mean, this is 5 games in a row now that the Vikings have lost to the Lions. Dan Campbell owns Kevin O'Connell. Ben Johnson owns Brian Flores. The Lions are the big brother and the Vikings are the little brother. We got to admit that. Sorry. I know a lot of you don't want to hear that, but that's the way it is. Go beat them. You're verging on there's going to be graphics about it. Oh, it's been, 1,000 days since the Vikings have beat the Lions. Well, go beat them then. stand up for yourselves, man. Fight back. Jesus Christ. But the worst culprit in all of this, two worst culprits, I'll say, are Sam Darnold and Kevin O'Connell. I think the offensive design and execution were really bad, and I think it starts on the two head honchos. So we'll get into that next. This episode of Locked On Vikings is brought to you by LinkedIn Jobs. Growing your small business in 2025 will come down to how well you can hire. I'm probably not the first person to tell you that, but hires start with smarter insights, and that's where LinkedIn comes in. With the strongest hiring data available, LinkedIn will help you identify the right candidates and give you the confidence you need to make the best decisions for your business. Small businesses always have to wear a ton of hats, or even if you just work like HR for a larger firm, every hire is crucial and you have a whole bunch of other stuff going on. That's why LinkedIn connects you to the best candidates using data you won't find anywhere else. From unique skills and interests to all the connections that you share, LinkedIn will help you find the right person for the job. In fact, 72% of small businesses say LinkedIn has helped them find high quality candidates. Hire smarter this year and find your next great hire on LinkedIn. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedonnfl. That's linkedin.com/lockedonnfl to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. This episode is also brought to you by Rocket Money. Rocket Money is an app that can help you track your spending and cut out maybe some of the fat in your budget, or maybe even stuff that you were subscribed to that you totally forgot about, that you've been paying for and not using forever. Rocket Money can help you find and cancel those unwanted subscriptions, monitor your spending, and lower your bills so you can grow your savings. It brings everything together in one place, whether it's subscriptions, your spending habits, or even the goals you want to hit this year. Rocket Money has over 5 million users, and they've saved a total of $500 million in canceled subscriptions, saving members up to $740 a year when using all of the app's premium features. Cancel your unwanted subscriptions and reach your financial goals faster with Rocket Money. Go to rocketmoney.com/lockedon today. That's rocketmoney.com/lockedon. rocketmoney.com/lockedon. Thank you so much for making Locked On Vikings your first listen of the day. Moving on here with the Locked On Vikings podcast, let's talk about the offense, because it was a bad day. I mean, you scored 9 points. You had a bad day, right? I'm going to say something very measured, and that's probably that the score underrates the Vikings' performance. They did move the ball a little, but they couldn't get it in the end zone, and the red zone had an outsized impact on their actual scoring. So I would say between the 20s, they were better than 9 points would imply, but when you fail in the red zone, that's what you get. That's probably going to explain a lot of this one, right, is that they were bad in the red zone. But being bad in the red zone is kind of a tricky beast. The Vikings have been okay in the red zone this year, actually. They kind of started off a little bit cold, but got to, there was a graphic on the broadcast that said going into that game, they were 10th in the league in terms of touchdown percentage in red zone trips. So they'd figured it out a little bit, but they just failed. They just outright failed. From a couple of opportunities they had to get Justin Jefferson, to a couple of other opportunities to get the ball to open Jordan Addison that Darnold just turned down, whereas with Jefferson, he would throw it, but he would just miss. I think a large percentage of it was on Darnold, but red zone struggles are tricky to pin down, and statistically, they're very unstable. What happens one game in the red zone will not necessarily happen the next game in the red zone. I think we've kind of seen that. So who knows what you get in the red zone in the next one. Hopefully better than this, right? But there's no real way to predict that. So what I'll say is, in the red zone, because coverages compress a little bit, like deep safeties turn into poach safeties, and like that's different, and the angles are different, and the concepts that you will run are different. So it isn't going to match how good your offense is, like, at all. It's like a totally different thing, and that's why it's hard to predict and pin down. Because the defense that you are going to see next is different too, from 1 week to the next. And the game plan that you're going to have from 1 week to the next is different. The plays you have from 1 week to the next are going to be different. It's difficult to do that over and over and over and over again. So perhaps there is comfort to you in saying, well, red zone woes aren't necessarily going to happen next week. I'm not saying that they're guaranteed not to or anything like that, but just that, it's just because something happened 1 week doesn't mean it's going to happen the next in these sorts of unstable worlds like the red zone. But it was still real bad, y'all, and that's why they lost. It sucks though, because even if they did do better in those red zone performance, like let's say they scored on each of their goal to go situations. Let's say they got touchdowns there. Okay, So that gives you 18 additional points because they kicked one field goal. They went for 4th and goal twice and didn't get it. So that turns 3 points into 21. You get 18 more points. You lose 31-27. Like, you still need to overturn more to actually turn this loss into a win. And I think that is a factor of the defense kind of getting smoked at the end. But if the Vikings could cash in better in the red zone, it certainly wouldn't have looked as bad. And the way the game played out, a lot of these red zone trips were earlier in the game, and then they just sort of fell apart in the second half. But the red zone trips were earlier in the game, and that might have made things feel a little different, right? The Lions might have taken a different approach if it were 21-10 at certain points, or 21-14, right? So you can play the if-then game all you want, but what actually happened in real life is that Sam Darnold sucked eggs. Boy, it was stinky, big bad boo-boo time. And there are two factors to it. One is there were some turndowns that you're not going to like, that are just not fun, and that a lot of people saw, screenshot warriors everywhere. Then there were the accuracy issues. So he wasn't seeing it, and when he was seeing it, he wasn't throwing it accurately. Yeah, that's going to be a stinker. That's rough. But I'll reiterate what I said in the first segment, which is that I will not abide like the Sam Darnold non-believers who just, like, okay, if you walked into this season like everybody else thinking Sam Darnold wasn't going to be that good, of course you did. Everything up to his career said he's not going to play that well. He played bad in everything we had seen of him was that he had not proven at all that he could be a good quarterback. So it was totally reasonable to predict that going in. What was not reasonable was to stick to that prediction in the face of an incredible game against the 49ers, an incredible game against the Texans week 3, incredible game against the Packers week 4. And even as things dipped a little bit in that kind of losing streak, after that bad one against the Jaguars, he ripped off some homers, right? 5 touchdowns against the Falcons, incredible game against the Seahawks, career high against the Packers. Like, the season he had became undeniable. But boy, some people are just waiting to deny it, aren't they? People just sitting there waiting for him to finally have one bad game and act like they were secretly right all along. No, bro, Chacho, you were wrong 16 times in a row. And just because the 17th went your way makes you no less of an idiot. So if you're still trying to hate on Sam Darnold and you're trying to say, aha, see, he is, this is the seeing ghosts guy, you're not funny, man. You're just clinging to something that was funny, in what, 2020, in the COVID year, because you haven't come up with a new joke in 4 years. Give me a break. I will cape for Sam Darnold simultaneous to saying he had a bad night. And the question becomes, how do you bounce back from that? Can you bounce back from that? And I think some of that's on Kevin O'Connell. And O'Connell had a bad night, bar none. Bad night of play calling. And I don't think it's necessarily that his play concepts were poorly designed. There were open receivers. That wasn't the issue. The issue was up front. The Vikings O-line didn't hold up the way they're supposed to against, guys that did not walk in as week 1 starters for the Lions. Zadarius Smith wasn't even on there, right? But he got his sack. Josh Paschal with big moments. Like, the O-line needed to do better, but also this offense asks the world of them, asks them to hold up. And Sam Darnold holds the ball forever. But on so many occasions, the Vikings felt like they were chasing the game before they had to, and I do think O'Connell is susceptible to that. He can get down 2 scores in the second quarter and feel like he needs a fast score and start playing, sometimes they'll do no huddle to like reset their quarterback's brain, and all right, get you thinking a little bit, get you in rhythm a little bit. We'll do some tempo, some no huddle, just to change the vibe. But sometimes I do feel like he's going, oh my God, we got to score right now, as if we got to score in 30 seconds or this game's going to get out of hand. And there's no world where you can just like sustain a drive down 2 scores. So, hey, just go get a nice 6 minute, give your defense a rest, 8 plays, 9 plays, get a decent drive, put that we got to go eat it all in one bite. It gets a little panicky. So when I say the Vikings choked, I'm talking about these 2 guys. Sam Darnold, the lights got bright. Everything missed high. He was way too amped. I'm not the only one saying it. Plenty of former professional quarterbacks have said it too, so don't take my word for it. Dude was way too excited for a big game with a lot on the line, and things came off his hand hot and too high. It just misses, man. You just got nervous and you screwed up. I don't know what you do about that because the stakes aren't getting any lower, man. At least with this one, you could afford to lose and still get in. Next time, you can't lose. So that's a situation Darnold's never been in before. So will that pressure get to him again? Will the pressure of potentially falling behind in a game to an explosive Rams offense force Kevin O'Connell into shot play mode, into, oh my God, we got to go score in 30 seconds mode, 7-on-7 mode? Or will he be able to calm his team down, calm himself down? But as it stood, there's one that really bugs me. It was a 4th and 15, and the Vikings ran 20 to 30-yard routes. There was nothing underneath that could be a catch and run, which those catch and runs have converted 3rd and 17s multiple times this year. They've converted things to TJ Hawkinson on 3rd and 10 plus multiple times. So running these big, long developing routes, then getting blitzed, you got a ton of pressure on Darnold, and he couldn't make those throws off his back foot. It was awful. It was over, and they got killed. So the game plan was bad. The execution was bad. The vibes were bad. The response to pressure was bad, both in the O-line sense of the word, but also the emotional sense of the word. Everything sucked, and the Vikings were bad, and I hate them now. That's like where I feel right now. Coming off of the heels of the game, I'm still very hot. But now the Vikings have a nice little 8-day rest period. They get to go to the West Coast, to LA, to play a night game, Monday Night Football at SoFi Stadium. And they're 14-3, and they got to go on the road. Some of you have a problem with that. We'll talk about that next. Today's episode of Locked On Vikings is brought to you by FanDuel, and it is playoff time, so it's time to get your gamble on, especially for like those AFC matchups that you don't otherwise really have a horse in. Put a little parlay down, put a live bet or something. The FanDuel app gives you everything you need for those live bets, same game parlays, spreads, over under, so much more. And right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. That's $200 in bonus bets, win or lose on anything. So if you want to say take the Vikings -2.5 at LA, Vikings are favored, or if you want to take the road under or the home underdog in the playoffs, which is kind of a thing, it is a little emotional hedge. I'm not going to judge you. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today and get started with $200 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com. Make this playoff season unforgettable with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Moving right along here on the Locked On Vikings podcast. So here is the deal. Whether you like it or not, the 14-3 Vikings have to go on the road and play against the Rams. I'm going to say something that a lot of you won't like. And some of you might want to yell at me, and I guess you're allowed to. But I don't think that that's a problem. Then there's going to be a lot of talk about reseeding, and there has been talk about reseeding kind of the whole time. The standings have been like the Vikings at 14 wins, and the Packers right up on their heels too, and they're all going to have to go on the road. But here's the deal. For one, I think taking meaning out of winning your division, probably not great. I don't think that's the strongest point, but it is one that I personally agree with. But it's easy to argue against that because it's like, well, fairness maybe should supersede tradition. That's a harder philosophical argument, but that's the one people are going to make, right? But for me, for one, I think I have enjoyed previously the, 12-4 Chargers team goes on the road kind of thing we always get in these playoffs. And just because it's my favorite team that's getting shafted by this time doesn't mean that I think that we need to demand the entire nation changes its rules to like placate us. Like, I don't think that's the case. But beyond that, it's so hard for me to look at a Vikings team that just got shellacked with a chance to win its division on the line, got swept by another team in its division, and say, actually, they should get a home playoff game. I don't think that they deserve that. I know they won 14, and I know the whole season is a whole thing, and I'm coming off of the worst night of it, so maybe my perspective is a little clouded. But I've thought about this every time it's come up over the last few weeks, and every time I find myself going, no, I think if they don't win their division, they should travel. Win your division to get a home playoff game, and that's fine. But I don't think the Rams should be shoved down into the road game thing. I think they've absolutely deserved their way in. And what's more, whether it's at home or the road, the Vikings have to play another one coming off of this trouncing, coming off of getting totally out physical. That's really what happened in that 3 touchdown sequence over the third and fourth quarters. 3 touchdown drives and long touchdown drives in a row too. I mean, we got 14 play touchdown drive, a 6-play touchdown drive, and then an 8-play touchdown drive. I mean, these were not like singular explosive plays. They sustained a little bit. If the Vikings, even if they were playing at home, I'd still say the same thing. And that is that they've got to get it together. It sucks because I think the Seahawks and Packers games really had me believing a lot more in them, and I think deservedly so. They put together really strong performances in tough situations. Packers are a tough team, man. I know they kind of laid an egg against the Bears, but they are a tough team. They were coming in on like white hot, blowing teams out. And the Seahawks were a tough team too. They end up 10-7, man. Like that's no slouch. And they don't even make the playoffs. So beating those two, you feel really good. You got to rediscover that Vikings. And you got to leave whatever happened here in the dirt. Maybe like I almost kind of hope that I'm really right that they're good, but they just choked this time. Get that out of your system, right? And then the wild card weekend lights won't feel quite as bright, and which is weird. But I don't know. This one felt like an NFC Championship coming in, like the way it was hyped up. But if that's the case, that feels more solvable. Because, okay, everybody calm down, sleep it off, take a minute, we'll watch the film, we'll get it back into the mode, we'll go back to 1-0, 1-0, all that stuff, those good messages and the vibes and stuff. You can rescue that, right? And I think O'Connell was brought here specifically to rescue a vibe that was totally in the pits at the end of the Zimmer tenure. That's kind of what he's here to do. But if it's more that, oh no, the Lions found exactly how to beat all your blitzes, which they did. They have every blitz answer in the world. And both O'Connell and Flores, I don't think they had another like chapter of the playbook to go to, which I think was a mistake. I think they really went all in on their game plan, and that was a mistake. So show up with a little more versatility, show up with a better plan against the Rams this time. A better pass rush plan in particular, because if you remember, the Vikings didn't get any pressure on the Rams at all. And Matt Stafford gets the ball out quick, and he can push the ball out downfield too. Like this, for a lot of the reasons that they lost that game last time, the Rams are not a good matchup here. So you have to figure out where in your identity as a team that loves to throw deep, that loves to blitz, that loves to do this risk reward game. That's the identity of the Vikings, and it's what got them here. It's what got them to 14-3. But you have to find out that identity and where in that is there room to contend with the team that has the answer. And if the Vikings go lay an egg in LA and lose and they're like one and done, then they deserve to be where they are. Because if you don't have a plan B for a team that knows how to answer your plan A, you are not a Super Bowl team. Super Bowl teams are versatile. They can beat different kinds of teams. And right now, the Vikings can't beat a quick strike team. Like a good quarterback that, drops back and gets the ball out quick. That's the Lions, that's the Rams, and I honestly think that those two teams are the best at it in the whole league. And you couldn't do it. You got to figure out how to do it. If they can get by the Rams, that means that they dug deep and they found something new in them. And then I think that experience will help them a lot, especially if they have to go right back into Detroit, or if it's go into Philly, go into Tampa, whatever happens. But for now, one game at a time, and focusing on this playoff matchup needs to be paramount. But I don't think you can just look at this Lions game and say, off night, and burn it. I can say that as a way of defending them from people who thought that they were fake this whole time and think that they've finally been proven right because they were, they weren't embarrassed for the 15th time in a row. Their takes weren't embarrassed. But for them, they have to look at this one. They really have to rub their own noses in this, I think, and really determine what went wrong. And like Kevin O'Connell has to look in the mirror and say, okay, they're sending 7 every single rep. That's what the Lions did. They sent 7 every play. How do I generate an explosive against that? And the answer is spatial more than it is temporal, right? And it's just about finding the space of those blitzes and figuring it out. But you've got to have something in your bag for that. And hey, they're quick throwing slants against all my blitzes. What do I do? The Vikings, both Lions games and the last Rams game, all 3 of their losses this year didn't have an answer. They got to find one, and they're out of time. They got to do it now. I'll get to your questions tomorrow, so send them in. to lockedonvikingspodcast@gmail.com or fill out the Google form in the show notes. I'll put out a call on Twitter in the morning as well, on Monday morning as well. So you should be able to find that by this time you listen to this. I will see you all tomorrow. And as always, Skull.